Welcome to this amazing third side event for the Young and Future Generations Day. We wanted to talk to you about a very important part. How do we finance coming here? Or how can we try to finance coming here? So the idea of this side event is financial, technical, and institutional support. So how can you help young people coming to COPs and getting empowered and improving their actions in today's world to try to make it a little bit better for tomorrow. So we're going to have two panels for this awesome side event. The first one is at the table, if Adriana would like to join us. And the second one will be coming right after a couple of videos that we will show you. So in this first panel, we have the luck to get Tim Damon with us, focal point for Youngo, which is the young constituency to the UNFCCC. We have Martin from Climates, a very good association. We have Johanna as well, also from a very good association, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, from Congo and also Climate Generation.
Ooh, that's nice. We have John Crowley from Unesco, who could give us a little wave. No, John? That was a nice try. Hi, guys. And Adriana from the UNFCCC as well. So, sorry, a last minute note. So Adriana is going to speak first about what Action for Climate Empowerment is, which is called ACE in the very known little word of the UNFCCC. Hi, Adriana. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you to the organizers, to our moderator, because today is a special day. Today is the Young and Future Generation Day, and we have been celebrating since really early. We started with the opening, we have multiple cultural activities, the intergenerational inquiry. Tonight we have the award ceremony, this side event, and it shows that young people are really the leaders of today and that are implementing climate action. My name is Adriana Valenzuela. I work as the focal point for education, training, and public awareness at the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change. Article 6 of the convention invites parties to promote education, training, public awareness, public access to information, and international cooperation. Last year, parties agree, the Paris Agreement, and one of the articles, Article 12, is related to education. And also it's related to young people, how we can empower to mobilize climate action. The Sustainable Development Goals also are a framework that recognize the key role that young people play. And goal number 13, specifically the target 13.3, address these issues of education, training, and public awareness. We, at the Secretariat, thought that we need to have a new name for Article 6 of the Convention. And parties agree this year that from now on, Article 6 of the Convention will be named Action for Climate Empowerment. Today you see the t-shirt that many of you are wearing that it says, "We are accelerating climate action." And for that we need young people. What are three key messages? First of all, we need partnership, intergenerational partnership, where young people can work together with the governments, especially in the implementation of the INDCs. Secondly, we need to inspire action. And for that, we have the award ceremony of the global youth video competitions to bring the voices, but also to showcase good practices and good initiative of young people implementing adaptation and mitigation. And third, we need a cultural change. This is a long transformation towards a low emission and climate development, and we need to really create we need to empower the communities. I also would like to highlight that at the COP22 here in Marrakech, we will have one day dedicated to education. It's the 14th of November, where we will have a high-level event hosted by the Ministry of Education, because we consider that it's fundamental to foster the coordination between environment ministries and education, and also the Princess of Morocco will be there. During this day, the ACE guidelines will be launched to support implementation at national level, and we will have multiple activities. For instance, how we can how the role of education beyond schools. Finally, I just would like to say that this event that you are organizing about mobilizing resources for action for climate empowerment for young people is fundamental. I encourage you to continue working with your governments to enhance implementation of the NDCs, and we look forward to showcasing your projects, your initiative here at the COP, but as well in the intergovernmental process on climate change. Then congratulations today to all of you to make this change possible. We are inspired, we are very happy, and also we are showing to the world, not only to the participants here at the COP, that young people are generating this transformation. Then thanks a lot to all of you, and let's continue celebrating together this great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana, for staying an extra few minutes with us. Now I'm going to give the mic to Tim, who's focal point for Youngo, the young constituency to the UNFCCC. Can you tell us a bit more about what that is, please?
Well, good afternoon. So Youngo is simply the official constituency for all youth who want to participate in the UNFCCC. And of course, there's no single voice for young people. Young people from many perspectives and backgrounds are part of this umbrella network. It's not an organization, but it is the mechanism we have for getting youth input from the world into this process. So I'd like to just give a quick thematic introduction, as it says, to why we're here. And if you were also joining us for the intergenerational inquiry previously in this room, then you heard that a number of related issues came up in terms of how do we support the engagement and climate action of young people. And really, there's a lot of good action that's already happening. There are young climate leaders who make it to this space. There are young climate leaders, throughout the world. But there's a lot more that we could be doing. And that's because these young people they're volunteers. All of us here in Youngo, volunteers. And as much as we have our passion, there's only so much that you can do without resources financially. And also, there's all the young people who aren't in this room. There's all the young people who don't even know what climate change is about, who don't know what happens in this space, who aren't familiar with the SDGs. And if we really want to succeed in these, we also need not only to scale up and provide financial resources, but also the technical and institutional resources so that all of these young people, from all the different levels, from UN all the way down to the most important, which is grassroots action, actually implementing the SDGs and climate action, is all able to take place. And my colleagues and I, as Youngo, we put together a lot of concrete proposals, and you'll hear more about these on the education day or if you come and speak with us. But really, it's about how do we get all these different categories of resources for young people. And that's really key, because we won't implement any of these wonderful pieces of paper without young people as the key agents and working in partnership with the other generations, both the elders and the really youngos. I'm getting my time as a Youngo will not go on forever, and we also need to be empowering the youngsters to step into our shoes as well. So with that, happy to answer questions, but I'll hand it off to my colleagues to explain more about some of the specific proposals and work that they've been doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. About creating a link in between the grassroots action and the top-level decisions, we decided in Climates, an association I'm a member of, to have a look at the Youth Delegates program. How do you make the link in between the young generations within the countries and the UNFCCC? So Martin is going to tell us a bit more about that amazing work we did this year.
Thank you, Margot. Hi, everyone. So today I would like to speak briefly, because we have a lot of people on the panel, about a specific point of youth climate action regarding international negotiation, which is the Youth Delegate Program. This program aims at fostering youth involvement in national decision-making processes by including youth in the national delegation, to the United Nations General Assembly, to the Economic and Social Council, but also to the COP on intersession. Climates, thanks to its international network, created a working group with Ungo last April in order to provide an analysis of the youth delegate programs at the UNFCCC, and also to map the existing ones using data from COP21. The first report was released last April, and last October, sorry, with a forward of Laurent Subiana that I have to thank here. And also, the second part is on track. It aims to analyze first the features of the different programs in order to identify best practices by interviewing as many stakeholders as possible. And it also aims to provide recommendation for countries that would like to implement the youth delegate program as part of their commitment toward action for climate empowerment. So now what about COP21? During COP21, we found 26 parties representing in overall 41 youth delegates by participating to the official United Nations program, but also without participating to any official program. Therefore, it wasn't actually a really easy task to identify the youth delegate because of the difference of program, as I said, but also because of the different names used to qualify the youth delegate. We found like youth leader, youth expert, youth delegate also. So in a way, it was like, as I was telling it to Margot yesterday, it's a bit like Pokemon, you know? It's quite complicated to catch all the youth delegates on the UNFCCC. So we also found that the geographical distribution among youth delegates showed really important disparities with 13 European countries over the 26. And differences also in the size of the delegation, from very small one, like one delegate from Austria and Finland, but we had also a very large one with 4 youth delegates from Mexico, 5 from Morocco. And actually, the good point is that these differences in the size of the delegation tended to correct the imbalance between South and North. Phase 2 of the project that we are working on right now already provide us interesting practices that I would like to share with you. First, it's really important to know that integration of youth delegates has to be prepared attentively by the parties. On this point, I want to quote the example of Netherlands, because for youth delegate from Netherlands, they have to make a campaign first in order to get elected to be nominated as a youth delegate, and even the campaign itself is a way of training to be a youth delegate. Second, youth delegates are integrated in a duo following a junior-senior model. The junior is being helped during the first year and becomes a new senior youth delegate the year after. The second point is that in most cases, the selection process involves a youth organization or a coalition, which serve as a relay between applicant and the national delegation. Party will have to make sure that we involve such organization while creating a new youth delegate program. And last, of course, the question of support and funding is without any surprise crucial. The candidates do not have always the means to travel to the host country, and for most of the interviewees, getting access to funding was one of the main obstacles to participate to COP. Supporting youth delegate can therefore be made by direct funding to the COP, to the intersession, to the national conferences at home, but also with indirect funding by supporting youth coalition and NGOs serving such program. As I said it, most of the time, such coalition are already serving the programs, the selection process, and they also organize the empowering part at the national scale, which is, my point of view, as important as participating to the United Nations processes regarding the importance of education to climate change. So the main question today for us is, how do we improve and how do we support this program? Paris, that's a good point, brought some good news by stressing the importance of education to climate change and public participation through the Article 12, but also by introducing in the preamble and for the first time the concept of intergenerational equity. So consequently, today, including youth delegates in national delegation is in an official way to operationalize the Paris Agreement, because of the work being made by youth delegates within the delegation, but also because of the really important work being made by youth delegates to empower youth. By informing them first of development within the United Nations framework, by being the voice of young people during the negotiation, insisting on the concern on any solution they may have, And last, by mobilizing the youth on the national scale on the implementation of environmental policy and concrete solutions. Today, I also want to say that youth delegates are the link to ensure the continuity needed to implement the NDCs. Because the choice regarding NDCs that we make today, they can be not made without consulting youth, because we will have to implement such choice later. The Kingdom of Morocco has also a really important role to play, of course, as they are hosting the COP22, but also because they were the only African country participating to the official United Nations program in 2015. So to conclude, one of our main objectives in climate, but also in young youth this year and for the following years, will be to push for the development of such program within each delegation. We consider that NGOs at the national scale could be really involved in the selection process and the empowering part at home. And we also consider that UNFCCC like the coordination within the UNFCCC should be a part of the mandate of ACE national focal point. Youth delegates within delegation are making progress year after year, and we also think that it's time to scale up the number of youth delegates within delegation, because obviously, and I will stop on it, like 26 parties over 196, it's obviously not enough. Thank you.
That's quite right. The good point is that France actually implemented a second youth delegate this year, and Climates with the Sustainable Development for French Students helped pick this year. They're unfortunately working right now, so they couldn't be with us, but they are here. That's a good thing. So now it's turned for our dear John Crowley to take the mic. You're from Unesco, if I'm correct, from the movement of social transformation, the management of social transformation, if I'm not correct.
Yes.
And you wanted to tell us a bit more about empowerment through knowledge.
Yeah, and also some more general things. My specific angle within UNESCO's programs is the Intergovernmental Social Science Program on the Management of Social Transformations, which is obviously very relevant to what we're discussing here in at least two ways. Responding to climate change is a socially transformative process, not something that is just about attaching a few new bells and whistles to an existing social structure. I see you nodding because basically you share this. If you're on this platform, you know this, you're already convinced by it, but not everyone is. There is still a very widespread belief that if only we could find the right technologies, a deus ex machina, we could fix the whole problem without really having to change anything fundamental. If there is one thing the UN system is now committed to, at least rhetorically and politically, the action level is more challenging, as you know. It is the idea first that climate change demands profound changes, which will not be negative for people's standard of living and enjoyment of life, but actually positive. And secondly, that climate change is part of a much broader agenda, the 2030 Agenda for Inclusive and Sustainable Development, without which climate action cannot be effective. In other words, what was said by the UN General Assembly in September 2015 is that you can't fix climate without fixing poverty, without fixing gender equality, without fixing urban sustainability, without fixing universal education, without creating governance mechanisms at all levels that are inclusive, effective, accountable, and participatory. Now, this is incredibly ambitious, and sometimes there is a tendency to sort of throw cold water on the UN because it produces high-flown rhetoric. But I hope ambitious isn't a criticism. The question then becomes how to line up action capacities behind the ambition. And that's the kind of thing we need to discuss here, and the kind of thing with respect to which the engagement of young people individually and through the mechanisms, the movements, the associations they put in place is absolutely crucial. Within my part of UNESCO, the science part, and through the Management of Social Transformations program, one of our key challenges is to encourage the production of knowledge, including in new ways, more inclusive and participatory ways of producing knowledge, in order to apply it more effectively to the challenges of climate change in the context of the broader challenges of the 2030 Agenda. And with respect to that, we've been working for a few years with Miro in particular on connecting this to youth engagement. And this is something I really want to push forward very strongly. So I stand ready in my programmatic capacity to find ways of connecting your energy to our objectives. Indeed, let me make a plug. We have a whole day of social and human science events tomorrow at the UNESCO Pavilion in the Green Zone, which you may have already seen. If you haven't, it's a time to see what it looks like. And I hope that you will find, if you have some time tomorrow to pass by, many of these events to be of interest to you, because they will be in the spirit that I'm just summarizing. We'll be talking about science, we'll be talking about inequalities, we'll be talking about ethics, we'll be talking about migration and cities, and we'll also be talking about philosophy, which is more a little parenthesis to lower the temperature a little bit. Please pass by. Please give us the benefit of your views so that we can build concrete activities that will correspond to the kinds of objectives we're talking about here. The basic spirit is very simple. It is that while we have extensive knowledge from the physical and life sciences about how planetary systems are being affected by climate change, the knowledge we have from the social and human sciences about how societies are affected by climate change and how the action capacities of societies could be leveraged to respond to climate change are still fairly weak. There's a massive literature. We could fill shelves along the whole back wall with books about this. But first, those books leave many gaps. They're often more aspirational than concrete. And secondly, the connection between the knowledge that the social and human sciences have developed on barriers to decisive, ambitious action to respond to climate change and on capacities to act is still largely ignored in public debate. That needs to change. In addition to what I'm directly responsible for within UNESCO, I'll remind everyone, but you probably know this, that UNESCO has competence and programs in a number of other areas that connect very directly. First, UNESCO is the lead agency within the UN system for education for sustainable development, which is done by people other than me, but we're one secretariat, we're one organization. And education for sustainable development, as mentioned by previous speakers, is not just about school. Education is a much broader process. It's a lifelong process of which formal education is only one component. Educating for sustainable development, equipping people with the knowledge to understand how their individual actions connect through very complex causal chains to the health of the planetary system as a whole, is a challenge that goes way beyond the classroom. Secondly, we have a youth program in UNESCO. Again, not my personal program, but run by colleagues in the same UNESCO sector as me, the key slogan of which is young people as agents of social change, which you are. And I don't need to flatter you by bowing down before you and paying homage to your youth. After all, I was young once. Everyone was, right? The only difference is that I ceased to be young some time ago and you still have it. So use it. But more importantly, we have a lot of practical activities through the work done by the youth program, through, among other things, the biennial youth forum, which is organized in connection with UNESCO's General Conference, that provide institutional mechanisms for the energy of young people through their social movements and mobilizations to contribute to UNESCO's programs, not just to help us implement, but also to force us to rethink. And that's very important too. We're not looking just for auxiliaries, as one says in French, for those who understand French, des petites mains, little hands that will help us do things. Though, of course, bureaucrats tend to think that way. Who can deliver my program for me, preferably at zero cost to my budget? No, we also need to call on you to force us to rethink the parameters of what we do. And the only way to do that is to create spaces where those things can be said, noted, and at least in principle, listened to. So I don't want to go too much into this. I'm be delighted to discuss further in the question and answer session if we have time for one, or after this side event if time is too short. But be aware that UNESCO pays great attention to the kinds of things you're doing, and we stand ready to partner, not just at the level of science and knowledge, but at the level of action as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need to join you on the Unesco pavilion in the green zone tomorrow.
Yes, please. Please fill it.
Well, the good point about what you just said is that you said using youth, but to use youth, we might need the help of people who might not have it anymore. So that's exactly why we're here today.
You mean old people?
No, I would never say old. Oh, no. Let's say less young people to be
Slightly
diplomatic.
more experience.
Exactly. I'm going to use that one now. We have one last speaker on this panel. It's Johanna. Why is the girl last? Why didn't I do something about it?
Because best is last.
Obviously. Again, why didn't I think about this? Can you tell us a bit more about your project?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Johanna Bozua, and I'm here with Climate Generation, which is a youth activation and education group based out of Minnesota, which is in the United States. And I am working here alongside Miro and a couple of other education groups to start up this year eCongo, which stands for Education, Communication, and Outreach NGOs, a kind of an affiliation. And I'm kind of in an interesting position myself because I straddle two worlds. I am a young person, but I also have worked in education myself and see the need for it and how that it can actually be quite an exchange. And so we need young people to be involved in education and for educators to also listen to youth. And so I think that eCongo is a really interesting opportunity that we have that came into being this year because it allows education, communication, and outreach groups to connect to each other in this international space and exchange knowledge and have an intercultural and intergenerational exchange. I come from a very US-based perspective, and I think that often we can get stuck in our bubbles and what education looks like in those specific places. And this is just a great avenue to kind of go beyond that and build each other's capacity and grow with each other. I think that there are also many synergies that come with Youngo as well, as I mentioned, because I think that youth can be advocates for education as well and recognize what it has given them too, and how it has activated them and how they can help for the younger, as you said, the very young Youngos and people even maybe older or what did we say, more time on the more experienced that may not have experience in in climate change specifically, and expand what we think of as climate education too, because I think often people can just see graphs and talking about how much temperature rise there will be, but I think that we do also have to think beyond that and look at what social components there are that will kind of expand who's engaged on climate and the different kinds of places that people can come from to add to this space and activate more people. So that's just a little bit about eCongo. We are very much at the beginning of our organization and what this means within the UN space and beyond the UN. So I would be happy to have anyone who is interested to come. We're having a meeting again tomorrow where we will be going into more depth about what eCongo is in meeting room 7 at 8 a.m. So I look forward to working alongside many more of you in the years to come.
Wow, that's inspiring. Thank you. We might have time for a couple questions. Yes, my watch says so. So are there any questions in the room, and do we have a mic that could be circulated? That's a good question. Maybe questions first. Is there any hand raising? You guys are so clear. No one wants to ask a question about what you just said. That's awesome. Or we could just, if you're not inspired now, you could be inspired later for other questions. So in waiting for our second panel, we're going to have a little video break for you guys to watch. And we're going to be right back in like 5 minutes. Miro?
No, it's not really a long video. We will include it into the presentation. So please, panelists, join us for the second panel. And please stay with us so that we can discuss So later, when there are questions after the second panel, we
Here on the
have
platform?
no, there, please. And here we are.
I'm sitting here.
Stay with us.
Or you are.
Alexandra and Ari. So please, everybody, join us here.
So for the second part, Tim is going to be moderating, this time not talking about himself, but the others.
Thank you very much. Let's start.
All right, welcome to round 2. I'll first be handing things over to Miroslav Polzer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome on behalf of International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. We are here at the side event, Financial, Technical and Institutional Support for Scaling Up Youth Climate Action. We are delighted that Climates are our partner for this event and Global Green Cross International. And we have organized this event because we have an initiative with which we aim to solve some of the systemic deficiencies of the global climate change governance, but also on the in this multi-level governance context. So we want to really mobilize resources for youth climate action on global level, but also on local level. And my presentation has the aim to show you how we are going about it. So you see, wanted resources for youth climate action is our slogan. We have had today a flash mob together with younger members and also with Secretary General Envoy on Youth. And the message is we must, we can, we will give youth a chance to take climate action now. So, and for this we have a COP22 call for resources for youth climate action, because the issue is so huge and systemic that it's not enough if one organization works on it or so, but we need some kind of social movement to really raise awareness about the need for give young people the resources they need to help the world. And it's also a multi-stakeholder effort, because we need partners like Unesco with this strong knowledge base, and we need the United Nations system which has already the mandate, but very often not the resources to deliver. We have to build and complement these activities of mandated stakeholders and help them pumping the resources that that are needed, that we really become more effective in global climate change action. And so what is this Give Youth a Chance COP22 call for resources? And for your information, this initiative has also the official COP22 project label. So it's really, we have now officially mandated by the COP22 host country to go around and collecting money. So we call for resources for youth participation in the UNFCCC processes through structures like Jungo, and we might say something in more detail later. And we are also saying that although the UN system is supposed to be big and strong and everything and has the mandate, but it's lacking resources. And there's nothing on the horizon which would say that member states are going to give these programs more money. So we also put this into our call, and we also want to have these programs successful and well equipped with resources. And the third element is an Agenda 2030 Youth Action Marketplace, which shall connect the products and services of young micro-social entrepreneurs on the ground, on the local level, who sometimes need only a few $100 or euros or a few thousand, with the big money from the big philanthropic sources. For instance, the Giving Pledge, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they have convinced already 130 billionaires' families to pledge to give back to society half of their wealth by the end of their life. So there are about $400 billion in the air, and then there are the 100 billion per year public climate finance for developing countries in the Green Climate Fund. But these big chunks of resources cannot trickle down to the young people who are eager to take action, but who are starving and cannot develop their full potentials. But with a marketplace where we build this intermediary infrastructure and the ecosystem and the quality assurance mechanisms and the information and communication technology infrastructure for connecting all these relevant players and including crowd evaluation and digital alternative social currencies and this kind of topics. This is a big effort. It's a big global infrastructure that needs to be set up, and it needs to be set up in a global commons framework. So it should not be something where a company is growing bigger and bigger and developing monopolies, but it's something which should be co-owned by all global citizens and all the partners who are contributing to these efforts. So we have in our campaign, we have a crowdfunding component, and we have a Global Challenges Giving Pledge call and registry. And we have a short-term fundraising target of €1 million. We will try to get pledges in this dimension by the end of January next year in order to report about this at the ECOSOC, United Nations Economic and Social Council Youth Forum, the biggest youth forum in the UN system. And the long-term aim and somehow appropriate dimension would be €100 million. And we have, for running this kind of partnership and resource mobilization machine, we have the structure of a multi-stakeholder partnership, the Global Challenges Youth Empowerment Partnership, GLOCHA, including Global Challenges Foundation, including setting up Global Challenges Youth Centers on the ground in every city and every local community, if possible. And here we are working with Jungo, with Global Youth Development Institute, with Climates, with Unesco Most, UN Habitat, UN Women, and also Citizens Climate Engagement Network, with the regional government of the Austrian province of Carinthia, National Youth Authority of Ghana, and Youth Think Center also. And this shall then develop into one of the leading delivery mechanisms for local action on the SDGs 10, 11, 13, and 17, reducing inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and partnerships. Next steps, we will have a press conference on Saturday where we will present the status quo of the initiative. We will have our first fundraising activities on razoo.com, a crowdfunding platform for youth participation in UNFCCC processes and for the Global Challenges Youth Music Contest 2017. We will translate this call for resources into all the relevant languages so that young people can help us to communicate this to the resource holders in their countries, with Climates in the French-speaking world, with Tim. We don't need to translate it, but and then if there will be, once there will be positive responses to this, we will call those resource holders and all our partners for this partnership to come to Klagenfurt in Austria, to the place where our organization has the headquarters, and to have their coordination meeting to decide on the governance structure for these resources. And the message is the journey has begun. We would be very happy to walk it together with you, and these energetic people that have been together with us here at the flash mob in the morning make us very optimistic that we will succeed. This brings us then to the presentation of a partner from Ghana, National Youth Authority of Ghana, which I see somehow as part of my presentation also, that you see that we are able to build the link to the local level, because National Youth Authority of Ghana has a network of 1,200 local and regional youth centers, and they said they are ready to give these centers for us to work with them, to bring our programs, to bring our resources, be it knowledge, but be it technology, and also financial resources. And here, a statement from there.
I'm the local rep of the IAAI here in Ghana.
Let's
the IAAI
increase
and the
the volume. The technology, can we increase the volume of
It
the...
started with the West Africa workshop on youth, ICT, and global challenges. It was the participants of this conference. My name is Nankwale Kwoti. I'm the local rep of the IAAI here in Ghana. The IAAI and the National Youth Authority of Ghana have been in partnership since May 2014. It started with the West Africa workshop on youth, ICT, and global challenges. It was the participants of this conference that put together the Accra Declaration. The IAAI and the National Youth Authority have formed a strong cohesive bond since then, and we are looking forward to making greater exploits. With me here is Mr. Ernest Amwako, a director of the National Youth Authority.
Thank you, Linda. The National Youth Authority Ghana has a network and the national mandate to empower young people of Ghana to play a role in climate action in the context of Agenda 2030. The National Youth Authority, therefore, seizes the need for the Global Youth Empowerment Partnership and offers its total support and assistance to the Give Youth a Chance project. We will ensure that all that we have to do to make Linda work with other young people to make this project a success.
That's it.
Well, thank you very much, Miro, because you're absolutely right. Even though there's a lot of resources potentially out there, they won't magically fall into the hands of young people. And so we need a mechanism to get them there. And this GLOCHA Foundation and this Give Youth a Chance resource methodology is going to be the way to get those resources there. Because young people need to demonstrate themselves as credible, reliable, accountable managers of funds if they want to use them, which we can be, and we'll show you. Now, in order to make this initiative a success, it needs to be global, and so I'm very pleased that we have with us Kun Song from Youth Think Center China. So please welcome and tell us about what China will contribute.
Thank you. This is my second time COP, so relatively I'm quite new to the COP. Although I've been in this, if I can call it industry, sustainability industry. I've been in the industry for quite a few years. I used to work for the largest sustainability forum in China. So I know that it's how hectic to organize an event like this. Being the organizing committee, it's really hectic. And I thank you for inviting me, because, you know, be a member of the organizing committee, you don't simply have the time to listen to the conferences. You can't focus, you're just organizing everything, you know, taking care of everybody. So my former job is more about high-level engagement, policy implementation, or sort of promote new policies in the government level, international level. But after that, I moved to a youth organization called Youth Think. Youth Think is a youth organization focusing on sustainable development and climate change. So for our COP experiences, so this is my second time, but this is the seventh time, I think, of Youth Think. So we started organizing Chinese youth delegation since Copenhagen in 2009. This year we bring, I think we bring over 20 Chinese young people, as young as 14, who is only a middle school student, as old as me, who is already over 30, across the 2 weeks. So this is one way of how we engage young people in China with the climate change. We simply bring them. But it takes really a long time for us to raise the funds to support them to come here. Usually the fundraising campaign runs for the whole year. So it's really difficult to, you know, to provide financial support and other support to the young people, but we're still on the way. So this is really a very important topic. Among the other things that we do communication and capacity building. So communication, for instance, we do a lot of campaigns. One of our campaigns we did last year is we cooperate with the United Nations on a campaign called My World Survey 2015, if you know that. So it was a campaign developed by the United Nations, which basically collect young people's voices or opinions on which is your priority among all the sustainable development goals So so far as I know that the campaign collect like almost 10 million votes across the world. So we did it last year in China. We developed a Chinese version software, web page, and recruited over 3,000 Chinese young volunteers to go to the communities to collect the votes based on paper. So so we collect over 300,000 votes across China within several months. So the data show that the top priority of the people care in China is environment. So it's very very important. But at the global level, it's education. But in China, it's environment. So I think there are already a very strong base in China, the awareness of the environment. It's not only about the carbon, but also other pollutants. Other pollutants. So this is the one campaign that we did. We also do capacity building, or we have our own educational program, offline program. Like we just did 3 months ago, we just did our first SDG campaign, SDG camp. It's a training course, 3-day training course in Beijing. 50 young people from youth organizations and other universities, student leaders come to participate in. So I think the camp is our methodology. We've been thinking about the methodology for a long time. It's not only about tell them that what is SDG, what is climate change, the knowledge, but also the ultimate aim of this camp is to nurture, to generate their own actions on climate change, on sustainable development. So I think 30% or 20% of the camp is about knowledge itself, but the other 80% had nothing to do with the climate change and sustainable development. It's about how you can raise the funds for your own small project, how you raise funds for your youth organization. So we would tell them, okay, how to do crowdfunding in China if you don't have the access to those big companies and big foundations. So crowdfunding in China is very active during the past 5 years. There's a report show that last year we have reached a very high historical record in crowdfunding via the social media, based on social media. And the donors, majority of the donors was born in 1980s and 1990s. So actually the young people are, especially young professionals and college students, although the donation is a very small amount, but they are the main donors of crowdfunding and internet donation. I was following, the American elections this year. Somebody mentioned Bernie Sanders in last panel, saying that how to approach young people. But actually, Bernie Sanders I think he received like over 2.5 million donations. Yeah, he does not want to receive any donations from the big corporations, but he received donations from a lot of young people. And it's 2.5 million donations. And the amount is, I think it's over 70 million US dollars. It's amazing. So I think there are a lot of potentials in crowdfunding, in small donations, because I was trained as an NGO practitioner 8 or 9 years ago. I was always touched by those small donations from a young professional just graduated from the university. Their annual monthly salary is very low, but still they would like to give their 5%, even 10% of their monthly salaries, to the charity, to philanthropy. So I think there are a lot of potentials there. So we train these students, not only also young leaders, not only how to do fundraising, but how to design your project. You have to have a very professional proposals when you go out to reach those public, to go out to reach those foundations, and also how to identify your potential partners. You can't do it alone. You have to organize. You have to find your potential partners and other young people. So we get someone from a very good human resources company, consulting company, which they have a very structured training courses on leadership, on teamwork. You have to tell them that how to. Oh, sorry. So last word. So yeah, so the last but not least, it's partnership. So we work with IAAI working on these issues. We've already been working on music context in last year, and we will continue to work with them this year to get those leading medias in China, also community-based media, to to communicate this competition to more people, and also working with this new initiative to reach out to those big companies and billionaires, and also more young people through crowdfunding. Thank you.
Thank you for inspiring us on the potentials of crowdfunding. Because again, that's a way everyone can buy into the initiative. We don't want to only target, more isolated large wealth holders. Now, our next panel, I'm very much looking forward to, because while I am a young person, I'm not like the Tumblr, Pinterest kind of young person. I feel quite old in that regard. So Alexandra is going to tell us about how to empower young people through technology access.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, and Miro, it's a pleasure to be here today. Just to give you a little bit of background, I came to the United Nations almost 5 years ago, working on clean water, ocean sustainability, and also bringing about new techniques in public-private partnerships. And I ended up at the Office for Partnerships. I've been working with them very diligently over the last couple of years. And the idea that I had when I first came to the UN, as my background was, I was an executive in charge of production and development at Viacom Entertainment for 10 years. And I always worked in sponsor-driven programming, original programming, and engaging youths. And many years ago, we formed, and this was back in the late 80s, early 90s, we formed a series that was broadcast over CBS globally and with their affiliates in 50 countries. At that time, that was a big deal because the internet was not what the internet is today. Why I bring that up is because that model is what I'm trying to bring to the UN and to the SDGs and the interagencies and IAAI and everyone that's here today. I think that it's great that you all are participating in campaigns and crowdfunding resources and things of that nature. But I will tell you from experience, and this is about 25 years of experience, is that I think it's integral from wherever you come from that you try to find resources also with large media partners and also the sponsors that pay for the advertising and the marketing and the ad time that's in the programs. They have budgets that are allocated towards the SDGs, and all of them, all 17 goals and 169 targets. And if you are able to identify those companies like Procter & Gamble's and Colgate and GE and Coca-Cola, and these are all the companies that I deal with on a regular basis, they allocate funding on an annual basis for these type of initiatives. And because of the implementation of the goals in 193 member states, and they have goals within their countries that need to be met. Through the media partners, I think you can gain even stronger traction if you can identify who they are. Now, I'm happy to make some introductions where I can. I'm working with the Office for Partnerships right now. We're going to be rolling out a gigantic media campaign with a universal media partner. So when I get a little bit further along, I will be making an announcement. It will come through a lot of the agencies. But one of the companies, just for an example, Procter & Gamble used to be a huge contributor to our programming needs and for the ad time. And they gave us between $50 and $100 million per year for a lot of what we did. That's a big number. But they were able to form relationships with the networks, and now through online resources. I mean, one of the media partners, for example, that I'm working with right now has 167 media outputs. So it's television, online, you name it. Imagine the capacity in which you will really be able to get your actions out there if you can hook into something like that. And, you know, this is one of the major global media partners, and doesn't necessarily have to be that big. But the point is, if you can really research in the area where you're at of who those global media, who the media contacts are in your area, I am sure that they might have ideas for funding as well. going back to what you were saying earlier about a younger generation, younger people raising money and being responsible for it, it is a good idea sometimes to connect with a little bit older sometimes that might be able to help you and guide you through the correct protocols to be able to manage your foundations, manage your businesses, manage your finances, so that you can gain a better reputation for being responsible for the funding. And that was always something, I'm from New York City. I worked on a city, state, and federal level with a lot of foundations and funding resources. And that was always something that always came about in the conversation, was accountability, being transparent with your funding, because once you gain the respect from your funders, the money will start flowing even more positively. So I will be making some announcements probably in the next 90 days that I think you will all be able to see through our networks. And I hope you enjoy COP, and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for the reminder that it's very much an intergenerational process, and young people really do need that mentorship especially. And now to give us some inspiration on social entrepreneurship and young venture capital, we come to Ari.
Great, thank you so much. Hello, Marrakesh, how you guys doing? Great. My name is Ari Eisenstadt. It is such an honor to be here. This is my 19th country so far this year, traveling around the world and speaking about the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'd love to tell you all a little bit about the work I do, our vision for the future, and then really looking forward to hearing any of the questions that you all may have. I am from Silicon Valley, California, and I run Dream Ventures Global, a venture capital fund where we invest in social entrepreneurs working for the Sustainable Development Goals. So we take the microfinance model, making very small investments, and the venture capital model of taking high risk, highly scalable, high technology companies. And we try to align them completely now with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I've been doing that for over 3 years now, and it's been very tricky in the impact investment world to really measure your social and environmental impact. It's easy to say you want to make more money, but how do you say you want to have a good impact on the world? And that's how I got involved with the United Nations. I was selected to be the International Chamber of Commerce representative to the UN for the SDG negotiations in 2015. And that was really inspiring to see all of the countries of the world come to a consensus on development, really for the first time in human history. And I really saw that there were so many different key players there, and they were really siloed. So with some friends of mine across sectors, we created this initiative called UN-Entrepreneurship. So really to connect people in governments with different UN agencies, within NGOs and nonprofits, big businesses, as well as startups, to really share best practices on social innovation to really help forward and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I've also been able to work with many different academic institutions within that process. I do some teaching at Stanford, Berkeley. Recently at Harvard, we created a program on social entrepreneurship working for the global goals, and which we'll be releasing as a virtual course, actually in virtual reality. This is a virtual reality camera that we're filming right now. You guys want to wave to that? Sorry. I just got back from Spain speaking with students there. I was in India and Bangladesh and Costa Rica. It's really exciting talking about youth because it's really the largest contingent in the world. It's over 50% of the world's population. And the really incredible thing is that us young people, I'm 28, so I still have 2 more years of this, depending on how you define it. We've really grown up with this kind of technology that really connects the entire world. In my hand, we have $1 trillion of computing power from the 1970s, more than what took us to the moon. So the potential for technology for the SDGs now, especially in regards to our environment, is just really thrilling. And I think young people can really lead the way for that. In addition to just young people, I've been a part of the Working Group for Youth and Gender Equality with UN Women. And I think that that's another exciting thing about this new generation, that we really value gender equality, which is truly the civil rights movement of our time. And it's not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. We see that companies with women leadership are more successful, and the same goes for countries. So I think that that's really a powerful thing that the UN has really been leading the way on. Another exciting initiative has been in advising the Secretariat with the UN on innovation. And throughout that process, we've taken them on a whole tour of Silicon Valley, and we'll now be opening up a United Nations Innovation Center in San Francisco, where again, we'll take those UN entrepreneurship practices, connecting key stakeholders across sectors, and especially really plugging into the technology industry to be able to help the UN further the Sustainable Development Goals. So if any of you would like to come visit in San Francisco, you're more than welcome. All right, yes. I also have one more, and this will be the first official announcement for this project, but I was just selected to be a representative to the UNGSII, the Global Sustainability Index Initiative. This is based out of Geneva, and we will be launching 3 different programs with that. The first is the Sustainability Index, where we'll be able to take all of the company's data from NASDAQ to any publicly traded companies, and now in the privately traded markets, we'll be able to measure companies' environmental and social impact, because if we can't measure it, it doesn't really exist. So that's something really exciting that we'll be able to guide financial markets, whether it be the UN pension fund or any other pension fund, and the private sector, I think, can really be a driver for sustainability. We will also be launching, hopefully next year, the United Nations MBA program. So if any of you are interested in getting your MBA and focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals, this will be a program that will take place in a different city, in a different UN center every quarter. So you'll be able to learn from top people in their fields, and then for the second part of the day, meet with UN officials, business leaders, NGO leaders, and really be able to get out into the field while receiving a United Nations MBA. And then through that, just the last point, we'll be able to then launch an endowment for that. And again, going along with our mission at Dream Ventures Global, to really be able to support young entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs with capital, equity investments, being able to launch a high growth, high technology company working to achieve the global goals. So again, really excited about all this, really honored to be here, and looking forward to any questions you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, most people don't appreciate that a computer with the power of that cell phone would have years ago been the size of this COP venue, literally. So thank you for being our guide to all these great opportunities utilizing that new power. And before we move into Q&A, we have a quick announcement.
Yeah, I only wanted to say it's good to have you with us, Ari and Alexandra. And we, in the next steps slide, I didn't mention that on the 16th of January 2017, we are going to have a workshop at the United Nations in Vienna, together with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization youth program there, about youth engagement in Agenda 2030 through social entrepreneurship and digital social currencies. And there we also agreed to work together with Ari, so that I'm 100% convinced that this social entrepreneurship model is the formula for the future. That's a huge potential, huge economic potential there.
And I'd like to add something onto that as well. I think it's really critical what you're doing. And the reason why is because one of the projects that I worked on during the culmination of the verbiage for the SDGs, because I represented over 4,000 NGOs called the Commons Cluster. So we were part of civil society that was able to incorporate language into the SDGs. And part of that work was also about technology transfer and internet related and communications and so forth. And part of the discussion was always based on aggregating data and keeping it current. And I really believe that this is a big part of what we're missing. If companies around the world were able to see the progression of the implementation of the SDGs, I guarantee you there will be more money that will be coming into everyone's hands for the success of the SDGs. You can't do this alone. And I come from the grassroots world, so don't take this wrong, but you need public-private partnerships, you need grassroots people, you need government agencies, and we all come together to be successful with this. And I think it's really brilliant what you're doing. We need like another 1,000 of you, but with what you're sounding like, it sounds like you're going to do that anyway. But really being able to get as many people on the ground to be able to deliver the message, aggregate the data, and be able to push it out so that everyone around the world can really see how we all come together. It can really make a difference. So thank you for that. It's really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We can bring them back.
Yeah. All right. So if members of the first panel would like to come back up for the Q&A portion, you're welcome to do so. And we have about 15 minutes left in which to take some questions. So does someone want to jump in with the first question? All right, you in the front row, sir. There should be the, yep, the microphone is on its way. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Edwin from Uganda. I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Ugandan Youth Go Green organization. It's an umbrella youth organization bringing together all young people who are doing climate change initiatives. So I'm glad to be here. My question goes to you, and I'm happy for the presentation you made today. It's an opportunity for the young people of the world to understand that there are opportunities out there, that especially financial opportunities for them to, tap into and get support of their activities. I would want to understand or ask, how can we work with you? How can we join with you, especially in popularizing the campaign that you have started right now? Can we make it popular in Africa, especially in the East African region? How can we get to be working with you so that we can be able to, give maybe an effort, especially mobilizing financial resources and other resources that young people may need? And number two, you talked about the workshop that is going to take place in 2017. How do we participate as young people? Is there an opportunity for us to be able to get in touch with you and then see how best we can, be part of it? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. So the first question, how you can engage as a youth organization from Uganda or Africa in general. So we have this partnership structure for the multi-stakeholder partnership for global challenges youth empowerment, and there are two levels of engagement. One is a core team of partners, and for instance, Climates is one of these core partners, and also Global Youth Development Institute, and these partners are somehow now our key partners to communicate this call for resources, the letter to the wealth holders that we have put together last few days, to communicate this to the billionaires or other significant wealth holders. And those youth who think they have access to or any chance to reach somebody with resources who is willing to invest in this partnership structure, they can sign with us a memorandum of understanding, so which defines the terms for participation, because the agreement is that the core partners will be co-owners of the whole partnership structure, the whole Global Challenges Foundation, the whole ICT infrastructure that we build, and also the local level institutional and technological infrastructure. So we try to keep it relatively small, because the more people are core partners, the more difficult it is to run the governance of such a structure. But if anybody has really the potential to reach resources and to connect the whole partnership with resources, then this person or institution has also the possibility to become core partner. And then there's the possibility for youth organization to raise resources for their local activities. And through our crowdfunding platform or through other ways of raising resources, and that these kind of activities could benefit from this global movement. As I said, it will become stronger and easier to get resources if there's really people see, young people from all over the world with support from the UN system and other significant players, also business sector. They are building here something that is impactful and strong. Then people will jump on the train, and this will also help small project resource mobilization. But for this, we will also set up a template for engagement, and there we will also charge a certain fee for the whole partnership structure, for quality assurance, because we will also the one who will take the risk for these local activities, because if people will not deliver, our brand will suffer. So we will try to make quality assurance, and all these resources will have to be managed in a very transparent way. So it will be on the internet where resources came from and for what they have exactly been used. So this will be the main element of this memorandum of understanding, will be this, that we have to have high quality standards, quality assurance standards, but very open and transparent.
Thank you. Other questions? Comments? We have about 10 more minutes. The floor is yours. I'm sure all of us could could add more in, but
Joe, would you like to say something? Citizens engagement network. Here is the microphone.
Thank you, Mira. So I'm the Global Strategy Director for Citizens Climate Lobby, and we're working with a network of partners to put together a Citizens Climate Engagement Network, which would allow for people all over the world, including young people, to take on the role of overseeing the sort of added and enhanced engagement between citizens and communities and people making policy or implementing solutions. We want to have citizen work streams where people are sharing their experiences and best practices and also influencing policy. And we're working on ways where those local networks that are developing can actually turn into the stewards of the implementation process locally, making sure resources are allocated where they need to go. And it might just be interesting to hear if any of you want to say anything about the subject. For me, what the interesting crossover between our work, which some of you are involved in, and what you're talking about here is that the Paris Agreement calls for intergenerational equity to be a standard for global law from now on. And we think that if people are involved, it's not just that if you represent a constituency, you somehow automatically get the right outcome, but if we simply involve more and more people, the discussion about human well-being becomes much more comprehensive, much more inclusive, much more detailed, and much smarter. And so I'd just like to maybe hear if any of you have some particular vision on how getting to these big goals that are in the Paris Agreement relates to this kind of local engagement and youth leadership in particular ways that you're involved in.
Perhaps just to add, IAAI is also partner of this Citizens Climate Engagement Network, and we will try to design the Global Challenges Youth Centers as nodes or hubs for functioning also Citizens Climate Engagement Centers.
But I just wanted to add something there, which is as we're also talking about education, and I know that in the UNFCCC process, education is often sort of a substitute for empowerment, and many of us are working to make sure that they go hand in hand. And so two-way education is important, letting the people who are learning also provide knowledge at the same time.
Absolutely. I would love to just also draw the attention to an amazing group called Project Drawdown, where they're really looking into all the technological solutions to not just reaching the Paris Agreement, but actually the concept of drawdown is at the point where we start to go down in carbon emissions and carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. So I'm excited about these new technologies, and again, in educational institutions, learning about these new tools to not only, again, reach our goals, but to exceed them. And I think that that's something that we can really hope to aspire to. And I think that it's going to come from that intergenerational collaboration from young, ambitious people and innovators that are able to do things in new ways and be able to reach out to the older generations with resources and experience and expertise in those projects. So I hope that we can all work together to draw down for climate change.
Would you allow me to say something?
Please.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question to the UNESCO representative. No, that's a joke. That's a private joke. No, I wanted to react to the question raised a little earlier, which is ultimately a question about process versus outcome. And I'd just like to make a plea in principle. I think there is still, maybe in some people's minds, the idea that so long as you get the right outcome, the process doesn't really matter. And we need to save the planet, right? So if a bunch of like-minded, powerful people could get together and save the planet, that would actually be for the best. And we don't need to consult ordinary people, and especially not young people. And this has been put forward by some very reputable public thinkers in contributions to public debate. James Lovelock, I don't know how familiar that name is to you. He is not young. Indeed, he's extremely old. He's well over 90, but still active. Is a scientist who developed what's become quite famous as the Gaia hypothesis. The hypothesis that the planet as a whole functions as a conscious living system. And he's one of the many people who subscribe to the view that we are basically screwed. We're heading to a warm world of +6 degrees and above, because he has no confidence in the ability of people like me in the UN system to resolve the problem. And therefore, what we need is emergency action to preserve, in other words, the capacity of the Earth to save not the whole population, but at least as many as possible from the consequences of that warm, out-of-control world. And to do that, what you need an enlightened dictatorship of scientists, right? And if you look at the literature coming out of big science events in recent years, you can find traces of this. Impatience on the part of scientists with the political process. Impatience on the part of scientists with the reluctance of public opinion to listen to scientific information. And on the basis of that impatience, a desire to get their act together so as to run the world directly. Are they right or are they wrong? They're wrong. It's not just me saying it. It's Sustainable Development Goal 16 saying it. There is no such thing as an inclusive, sustainable outcome that doesn't derive from an inclusive, sustainable process. Not for wishy-washy, be nice to people reasons. That's not why people need to be included, but for very hard, knowledge-driven reasons. If you try to design it without reference to the people who run it being the planetary system, you are going to fail. Because this isn't a simple problem with simple answers. It's an incredibly complex problem, the solution to which is actually about shifting the problem away from the traditional technocratic, top-down, problem-solving mindset. So don't see this as an alternative. It's not a bit more participation, a bit less efficiency. The two things go together, and that's very difficult to think about. And indeed, recent political events in many continents, including my own home country, do lend more credence to the idea that if you have something really important to resolve, for God's sake, don't ask the people because they will give the wrong answer. No, no, no. That won't work. It's not normatively defensible, and it wouldn't work in practice either. This is a huge challenge, and we shouldn't underestimate its importance.
Thank you.
We have time for one final question from the very back. A quick question.
Yeah, I have a question, but before that, I have a quick remark to what person speaking before me said, that we just need a group of people to make the change. Well, to make it possible, I don't think so. Because this is the kind of change that we're looking for. It cannot be done by 50 or 100 individuals. Otherwise, it would have been done since Rio 1992. 40,000 people meet up every year at the COP and try to create changes. But it is something that needs to involve the entire mankind in a way, in a very inclusive way, if not everybody, but at least every community, representatives of every community, every village, is somewhere down the line, everybody has to be involved. This is why we have, the inclusive agenda. We have the HLPF theme, which was, I don't remember exactly, but it has caring for all, something like that. This is why we have to leave no one behind. That was the theme, sorry. Yeah, leave no one behind. That is why we have these themes and we have these discussions to keep everybody together as we go through the process, because a lot of people, 50 people coming together, 40,000 people coming together is happening every year. And now I have a question to our two panelists who addressed us on the financial and the institutional support. Can you, when I have been involved with Plan for the Planet for last 1 decade almost, and what we do is that when our climate justice ambassadors, they organize academies, they normally have to fundraise themselves. And that is where we go to the local, for example, franchisees or the local industries. But many a times, the young people don't have a clear roadmap. So do you think that we could, or the United Nations Framework Convention could provide a basic data sheet or a basic roadmap, or just a basic toolkit for young people on how to approach industrialists or industries? And this could be like, what I'm saying is not just a small toolkit, but a bigger one, region-wise, specifically. Maybe experts could come together and design which country or which particular area, how to approach, how do the climate activists approach funding in those areas. So this is just a suggestion, something to work on. And very thankful to you for sharing about the workshop in Vienna and the UN MBA program. Thank you.
Yes, please join us.
Thank you. I think it's important when you're saying, you need a toolbox, because we all need a toolbox, especially for the implementation. Part of some of the work that I do at the UN is I'm part of the policy strategy group for the World We Want platform 2030. And we're reconfiguring all of that right now. With regards to what you're discussing with your ambassadors on the ground and localizing and national, I think that it would be good to try to organize maybe a subcommittee to put something like that together with some of, like when we at the UN, we have the major groups. Maybe we can put like a major group together so that we can organize what the most important aspects are of what you need. Because you need to understand each country and which organizations and industries are the most important and relevant for the implementation of the goals. When you learn who those people are, then it's about formulating the correct protocol of how to reach out to them, because sometimes cold calling is not going to work. Sometimes it's better to form a relationship with someone that can backdoor you in to the organization and be able to bring you to the higher level people that are the decision makers. Because a lot of times you end up getting in the door, and if you don't know the right people that can sign off on getting involved, being able to write checks to fund you, you end up wasting a lot of time. So I think that and that's part of, again, the younger, little older generation coming together to be able to explain to you really how to do it in an expedited fashion, because we have 14 years left, so we need to move quickly. And yes, I think that would be great to do that.
Yeah. We will put it on our program of action.
Yeah.
We're just about out of time, but I would love to add that's really something that we focus on with our educational programs. And really not just making it about a roadmap, but a very personal, human-centered design around what you want to do. In so many of our workshops, we do dreamathons where we ask students what is their dream job, what are your skills, your passion, and your purpose. And I think if you're sitting in this room, you really have identified with your purpose, but too few people really are able to do. In the US alone, 30% of people are engaged with their jobs. So I think to figure out what you love to do, what you want to do, and then be able to really define that roadmap and a clear and concise plan to achieve those goals. I think that we need to really focus on that to be able to achieve the greater sustainable development goals.
Well, unfortunately, we do need to end our discussion here, but hopefully many of us are still going to be around in Marrakesh for the coming week or so. So I hope we'll continue those discussions. So thank you, everyone, and a special thank you to Miro. He's way too modest in letting the young people facilitate this and taking a back seat, but it's really his idea behind this event. So a big hand for him especially.
Let's make a group photo. Everybody who would be like on the photo, who loves the topic, the message, please join us here on the podium. I did it. So I should get this back here. Great job.
You're based in New York? Yeah. I'm gonna be on San
I'm in New York. No?
So then let's get together and you come give me the
All right, please join us for the photo. Everybody on the stage. John, please join us here. You can also come for the photo.